beta sessions for the assurance and financial statements. First of all, today we'll go through Probe and we'll specifically look at audit. Then a bit later we'll go through the financials, and then after that we will go through Audit International. The session is being recorded for those of you guys wondering, so we will make it available not publicly, but for those who have attended the session, it will be made available. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Christian Stein and I'm the product manager for the assurance products, and I'll be taking you through the assurance side of things. So if we look at the agenda for today, we'll look at the beta process and what that involves. Then we'll look at ISA 220 and ISQM 2. Those are the biggest themes for these releases, both Probe and Audit International. And then we'll go through the normal process of looking what is new in terms of features, fixes and hotfixes, content, and some known matters. So in terms of the beta process, we are in a beta process. So it means the software is not yet finalized. We have developed all of the features that we do believe is required. We have tested the features, and now we're sending it out into the real world so that you can test it in your scenarios. It's very important that when you look at the software, you see it in that light, and then report anything to us in your scenarios, in your instances where it's not working, or where you don't believe that it meets the criteria that we set out, or maybe something is unclear for you, you don't understand the procedure, or you think your market is not going to understand what is going on, or the users won't understand. Please give us that feedback. The purpose of beta is just that. We have gone through our process, we have tested, we have gone through various cycles of reviewing the products, but when it gets to you, you have a different mindset, you look at it with different eyes, and then you also have different environments that you have it implemented in, and then we need to manage that so that we can make sure it works when we actually deploy the software a bit later. It is safe to use like any of the other software, but it is important that when you do use it for a specific audit, you need to be very careful because there could be some areas not 100% working, and you need to make sure that you cover those either with supplementary procedures or with workarounds as we have given you in some of the known matters items. Then important, this is for Caseware 2023. So we mentioned in the What's Coming webinar that this will be on Caseware 23. So as we do every year, this time of the year, it's a new Caseware version, and you cannot use the old version with the new templates. So when you are doing beta testing, make sure that you have the new version of Caseware installed, as well as then the related templates. Just remember, if you then open any of the other engagement files, those will also then be upgraded to 2023, and anyone on 2022 will not be able to use it. So just be careful. It's safe to use, but when you're upgrading engagement files, then anyone else without Caseware 2023 won't be able to use it. So the templates and working papers are available on our support cloud under the CWWP beta testing entity, and you won't have access to that entity at this point, but after the webinar for everyone that attended, we will provide you with access. If by the end of the day you don't have access or you're struggling, then you can just reach out to Ninka or myself, and we can then have a look to make sure you do get access to the software so that you can install and test next week. Okay, so now let's jump into the actual theme of the release and what we have done in Probe. So first of all, looking at ISA 220, which is the quality management for an audit of financial statements. And this deals specifically with the responsibilities of the auditor regarding quality management of the engagement, and especially the responsibilities of an engagement partner. The responsibilities are quite clear. I think engagement partners always had a lot of responsibilities in the file. A lot of it has been clarified, and there is a bit more work to do. We've tried to make that work as simple as possible, but there is quite clear responsibilities, and we've tried to help you with that. And then the next big change is ISQM 2, the International Standard on Quality Management for Engagement Quality Reviews. So that's ISQM 2, and that is the appointment and eligibility of an engagement quality reviewer, as well as their responsibilities, which is also clarified, and there's certain things that they need to do. Now, these are effective for audits and reviews of financial statements for periods beginning on or after December 15, 2022. So the first audits will be this year in 2023, because that is when the year ends will then end, so from next year's audit. So let's look at the changes in the product. So first, we'll look at the universal changes, and these changes actually impacts both audit review and compilation, as it is throughout. So first of all, we've added engagement history. And when I'm saying engagement history, there's a brand new folder, and that folder now has history within the engagement file. So this functionality has always been there, but you just didn't have the documents enabled already. So what we've gone and we've done is we've added those documents for you. So the first one will give you any adjusting journal entry history. So who wrote the journal, when did they do it? And then you can see what happened with your journals, your file access, who accessed the file, the user, and for how long they accessed the file. When a document is created, when a document is deleted, all history events, so basically everything in one file, and then your post-lockdown events. Now, if you need to do a lockdown and you then after the lockdown need to access the file for whatever reason, you would normally put in a reason why you're accessing the file, and then that history gets saved in the post-lockdown event. And you can then open this document. I think a lot of time regulators ask, have there been any changes of the lockdown? That would be the document that will immediately indicate to you that there is no changes of the lockdown. In the past, what you had to do is you actually had to open the file, add the document, and then it showed that the change was adding the document. So now we've just added the document for you, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. If they ask were there any changes, you can show them the post-lockdown events, and it is all the things that changed since lockdown. Okay, so those are the history documents. If we then look at your firm policies, so as we focused on quality, a big area is in terms of the partner and the EQR reviewer, as well as then the firm policies and procedures that you maybe have in your system of quality management. So a new principle we brought in was a minimum level of staff members that can set firm policies. So in the past, you always had the feature to allow you to modify any work programs. This include planning and the work program documents, and it was editable by anyone who was on a higher level than O6 or higher. What we've done now is we've actually added another level of security for the firm authors, so that if you want to then add procedures that can't be deleted, then you can do that on a case view level 9. Now, it is important that it is only relevant to certain documents, and there's 4 documents which we'll go through a bit later in detail. But this feature is only available in those 4 documents, and that's generally where you would set your firm policies. So how does it work? So if I'm on a level of 9 or higher, and again, you can set what the level is. If you then open, for an example, the partner sign-off document, where you would normally set policies or procedures, there is the ability for the firm author or to set firm mandatory procedures. And this is where you as a firm author, because you're higher than a level 9, would be able to add new procedures there. Once those procedures are added, then no one else would be able to delete it. So if I show you as an example, I'm currently logged in as level 9. If I say this requirement is for a level 10, then if I go back to the partner sign-off document, you'll see that that area is no longer available. And because I didn't add anything, I can't see that. If I then go back into level 9, the area is available for me again. I can go insert a row, and then I can edit that specific row. So let me say that is the row I've inserted as the champion or the firm author. I go to level 10, and now I can't change that specific procedure. Okay, so you can then also go and choose which ones are relevant and which ones should be showing, as well as then add a reference to some of the other documents. We'll deal with the references now, because you'll see that this document does look a little bit different. So that's the new firm policies that you can add, and you can add that into the partner documents, document 12, 30, as well as our EQR documents. Then looking at the next feature is the partner and engagement quality reviewer sign-off automation. So back into the firm settings, as I said, there's quite a few responsibilities partners now have to show. And what we've done is we've brought in some automation for you to bring through if you are reviewing electronically the information. So there's two new areas, the partner sign-off reference automation and the EQ sign-off reference automation. Now, if I go to, or if I leave it on none, and I go back to the partner sign-off document, you will see that there's no reference or there's no sign-off information for me. What we've done is you can see I've already referenced to certain documents, and where we could reference that for you already, we have done so. So this comes from 0 to 70, and you could also click and follow the link, or you could add your own reference if you wanted to. So where was this done? And this is now when you are maybe doing it manually. So it's done in 1210. And you can then say, yes, it's done, or no, it's not done. We've also added some details. So if you say, did you review? What did you review? You can choose what you've reviewed. You can reference, and we will pull that through for you. Now, that is when you decide to either complete this document manually, or when you don't use the sign-off functionality within Caseware. If I now go and I make it automated, we then have an option to choose what is the partner sign-off role. So what level will they sign off? And for us, it's set as 4. So the role that has been selected is role 4. And if I go back to the partner sign-off, what you will see now is that the sign-off information will now show. Now, it does now look like nothing is showing because nothing has yet been signed off. So let me go to 0 to 70 and quickly sign that one off. So that is my final review. Remember, we said role 4. So if I go and I sign off the manager final checklist as role 4, and I now open the partner sign-off document again, the sign-offs are automated. So there's my name and surname together with the date at which that document was signed off. Now, this makes it a lot easier for partners to now see which documents they have reviewed and which ones they haven't, and where they still need to do some work. If I also go and reference as an example to this document and some of the other procedures, you will see that we pull it through for you as well. So just makes it a lot easier for you to then manage to see, did you review the document, who reviewed it, as well as the date of which it was reviewed. You document any details, and you can then say yes. And then you can say, I've reviewed the manager's checklist, that is done, and it is already pulling through the information. So this is one area where we really tried to make it a bit easier for partners as well as EQRs to make sure what they've reviewed and to show that they were actually involved as part of the audit and during the whole engagement. Okay. Now, let's go and have a look at some of the fixes and hot fixes. So it is important to note that as we release the hot fixes, when we do the next release, we include all of those hot fixes into the current year's template as well. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the hotfixes, but you can see them in the release notes. They are listed there under 3.3, and we've listed all the hotfixes for you. So if you ran into any issues, you ran hotfixes for it, or if you're not sure about the hotfixes, you can go to the Pro hotfix page on the Success community and have a look there. Now, none of those hotfixes are applicable to this template because we've already run them, but for last year's template, they are there. Now, let's look at the content specific in terms of the ISA 220, ISQM 2. There's some ISA 315 changes as well, the going concern conclusion, IAS 1, as well as supplementary or other unaudited information and improvements to work programs. So if we look at ISA 220, I already mentioned that the involvement of the engagement partner throughout the audit needs to be demonstrated. There's also been an update to the definition of the engagement team. And then we also have quite a lot of references on the firm's policies and procedures, which is why we've added that functionality for you. It's important that the whole team should exercise professional skepticism, and then the partner should consider the full suite of resources needed. So that being human, technological, as well as intellectual resources. So when we're looking at the engagement team, it's much more than just the normal team we use, and we need to consider the use of all resources. And then the engagement team collectively, with the new definition of engagement team, have to have the appropriate competence and capabilities, including sufficient time to do their work, and the partner will then conclude on that. So quite a big responsibility for the partner to make sure that all of this is committed to at the beginning, as well as in the end, make sure that it did happen. And for that reason, we've made quite a few changes to, first of all, the partner sign-off document, so the planning memorandum, as well as the partner sign-off document. So we already had a quick look at the partner sign-off document, so the engagement partner declaration, you could see we've added this area. In the past, it used to be a few sentences where the partner said, I've done the following 3 or 5 things, and then you just signed it off. But now you actually need to indicate how you've done it and say, yes, you have done it, as well as then document and sign off. So once you are then done, you click as the engagement partner, then sign off the document. If an EQR, second partner, managing partner, you have the ability to switch them on as well, like you had in the past. If we then go to 1230, the planning memorandum, that now has a similar declaration. So there's our questions for the partner to indicate their involvement at that point, what actions they've taken, which discussions they have, and again, the engagement partner can sign off when they are done, or they can sign off the document as final review if they wanted to. So that is what we have done for the engagement partner sign-off pieces. If we then look at the additions, as I already mentioned, the use of resources. So resources is much more than just a person. And then we also have a use of another practitioner, as well as engagement team declaration. So 3 new documents, and when we get to the EQR, you'll see that there's a 4th new document. So 1222 is a new document that we are calling use of resources. So if we have a look at 1222, the use of resources, this now is your declaration for firm personnel, as well as some questions about technological resources. And if you indicated in 1050 that you will be making use of an EQR, or you have some other resources that you're making use of, another practitioner maybe, then the information will then also switch on for them to clarify and for the partner to then work through. Now, on these paragraphs and these tables, you will see that they should look familiar to you. We didn't change too much here, except for the signature and for the signature area. So this is something we got feedback on from some of our users, and you can see that in the past, anyone could sign off on behalf of anyone else. Now what we have done is, if I choose, for example, myself, I'm not logged in as that username at this point in time, I won't be able to sign off. I'm logged in as first name, surname, and I can then sign off. So this now just helps the partner to make sure that everyone in the firm actually goes in and signs off the declaration. It works like this in planning, and it also works like this in finalisation. So you can't sign off as someone else. You can still go and select the person, but you can't sign off as that person. They will have to log in and sign off themselves. Okay, so that is 1222. Then if we look at 1226, which is the use of another practitioner. So the use of another practitioner is similar to document 1030, where it is a template document, and you then send that document out to the other practitioner for them to then complete and send back. You could have multiples. So if we think about a stock count, maybe your firm is in Joburg and there's a stock count in Durban and Cape Town, but you don't want to send your staff there, you use another firm or a network firm, you use some of those staff, then you would send out multiple copies of the use of another practitioners to then those firms. So I've already gone and create a copy of 1227. And then what you will see is you also actually need to indicate in document 1220 that you will be using another practitioner. So we don't switch on the content if it is not relevant. So let's go to document 1220 and then indicate for which areas we will be using another practitioner, and then see how the document will then be used. So there, number 7, risks at a surgeon level. The overall audit considerations will be using work by another practitioner, yes. And if we say yes, we also need to open the actual section and then say for which area. So that is overall, yes, we will be using it. We'll be maybe using it for PP&E, maybe we want to do confirmation. And then we also say, please go and add the procedures to the work program to evaluate work from the another practitioner is adequate for our purposes. So now we need to inform them. And what we've done is we give them your declaration. Again, you can go and add and change this. We have given them, so the expectation is that they won't have access to this caseware file. And you would actually need to print the document for them, send it to them, they will complete it either in PDF or manually, and then send it back to you. So that's why we've done it in this way, where it actually shows lines for them to complete it. And we ask them a few questions, we inform them of a few things, and then they would go and complete that. So they'll complete the first part and then send that back to you. And then when they are done with the engagement, we've also included the finalisation piece in here. So important when you send out the instruction, they need to send the first part first and then the finalisation part second, once they are actually done, to confirm their independence and the declaration there. And we've put it for you in one document. Our expectation is you will receive it back into 2, and you can then add the finalisation piece in the last part. But we've included it in one just so that it's a bit easier for you to remember and send it out. Otherwise, you would have to send it twice. Hopefully, this helps a bit in just managing using of another practitioner there, so that you can send it out once and then get it back. And then 0205 is then a new document, which is the engagement team's declaration for finalisation. So similar to what we've just shown is then for the another practitioner, you then have your engagement team then also signing off. And what we've done already is it does pull through the information from the planning side. And you'll see it looks a bit different. You don't need to disclose all of that information again. And the team can then come in and sign off their independence as well. So important to note there's now 2 declarations, one for planning and one for finalisation. And we have added those. And then there's the use of another practitioner as well. And we just remind you that you need to obtain the signed declaration. So you don't have to send it again, you've sent it already, but just remind you to obtain it. And that procedure will obviously not show if you don't have another practitioner. Okay, so that's the ISA 220. So we've gone through the use of resources, and that really is to assist you to evaluate whether the resources are sufficient, appropriate to perform the engagement, as well as to conclude on the evidence for the partner. 1226, the use of another practitioner. So that is for you to inform and provide information to the other practitioner to make sure that they can finalize the audit and also do their piece of the work. And then 0205 is where your firm personnel sign the declaration, as well as where they're prompted to get the declaration from others. And as I mentioned, those are added from 1220. Then ISQM 2. So we always had 0-80. That was your EQCR checklist. Now it is your engagement quality review, execution and finalization document. And then there's an addition for 1240, which is your engagement quality review planning document. So 1240, it basically includes questions related to the procedures that an EQR needs to perform at the planning stage. And those are all the mandatory ones that the ISQM requires, plus the firm can then add specific ones as part of the firm policies and procedures. We also asked them to consider and conclude on their ability to act as an EQ reviewer, obtaining an understanding of the engagement, having required discussions with engagement partners and the engagement team, as well as review. So if I open document 1240, let's have a look, there's my EQR. So if the EQR are planning to use assistance, we've built that in. And then there will be more questions for the EQR to consider, as well as they can then reference to where they've done the work. We give them a declaration as well if they're completing it electronically, and then we ask them various questions around the firm's policies and procedures. So remember, you can go and add the eligibility, gathering of information, significant judgments and matters, and they've got the ability to add significant judgments in here and decide which ones they will review. There's my mandatory information and then a conclusion, and the EQ reviewer can sign the thing off as well. So similar, I've currently said that we will complete this manually, so it's not going to pull through my sign of information, but if you wanted to in the firm settings, this is where you would then say we can automate that. And then you add another role, or you can repurpose a role. Maybe they're signing off as role 3. You can select that as well. But if they have another role, by default, generally you go and add, and it's number 5. You can then select that there. So that's 1240, which is a new document. And then 0-80 will work the same way. Then in terms of ISA 315, so you'll say, but Kristen, you guys did ISA 315 already, and yes, we did. But what we've done at the beginning of this year and throughout the year is, because it was the first time implementation, we met with quite a few of our clients and we got feedback around the implementation of the various changes that we've made. We received feedback, and based on that feedback, we then improved on that implementation. So quite a few changes that we've made. So first off is the type of risk assessment. So we got feedback that between, or the type of risk assessment procedures, we got feedback that between 1051 with the risk assessment procedures and the year-on-year comparison and 1052, there are some confusion on when you should perform the one, when you should perform the other, and then how should you do both. So what we've given to the firms is there is quite varying opinions. Some interpretations is that you do need to make or to do a risk or create an expectation, and then thus you need to do 1052. Some say you don't have to. So we've given the option for the analytical procedures where you can choose whether you do want to develop expectations in 1052 instead of performing simple comparisons of information in 1051. So by default, all of our selections is you can choose per audit engagement. So when you choose per audit engagement in 1050, there will be a question, and the question, let's quickly have a look. There it is. Do we plan to use 1052 to perform analytical procedures? If you then say yes, then document 1052 will be enabled, and in 1051, your comments will be disabled, and these will pull through from 1052 so that we don't duplicate effort there. So they will already pull through from 1052. So that's now the source. We're doing the analytical procedures in 1052, and we're pulling the results back. If we say no, we do not want to, if I then open 1052, you'll see that it is switched off, and then it will indicate that we have indicated in 1050 that we won't be doing it, and in 1051 the comments are enabled and you can do it in here. If you as the firm also wants to change that, you're welcome to say it is required, so you will always do 1052, or it's not required, you will always do 1051, and when you change that, it will then not ask the question in 1050, and they will be not prompted to do 1052. Or if you say that you should always need to do 1052, you can do that as well. Okay. Then if I open 1051 as an example, another area we got feedback on was the risk assessment procedures and the type of procedures that you have performed. So for now, or in the past, you didn't have an option. It was there for each and every section that was actually performed, and you had risk assessment procedures and you had to document. It could be unique if it's a big client, it could be unique in terms of what you do. If it's a smaller client, then it might not be unique and you might be having the discussion with one person. So again, in the firm settings, we ask the type of risk assessment procedures, record them. You want to choose per audit engagement. Is it not required per section, or is it required per section? So if I say selected per audit engagement, then I go to 1050 again, and there we ask the question, do we plan to record the type of risk assessment procedures for each class of transaction? If I select yes, then in 1051, then I will have to do it. There's my one for PP&E and my one for investment property at fair value. So each section and class of transaction will have its own risk assessment procedures. If you say no, or it's not required in the firm settings, then you'll only have one right at the top. So hopefully that helps in optimizing the way in which we work just a little bit. Then for 0220, our going concern conclusion, we did make some improvements there regarding management use of the going concern basis of accounting, and if management is unwilling to extend their assessment. So previously this used to be one question, and we've expanded that question to two to ask, they didn't extend it, but is it pervasive or is it not pervasive? And if it's not pervasive, we proposed a qualified opinion, and if it's pervasive, we then proposed a disclaimer of opinion in 0250 or assurance reports. So we just got some feedback there that procedure we could help you a little bit more in determining the audit opinion. So your going concern conclusion now have, we split that question into two, and you now have two options based on that. Then we propose the various audit reports. Then for IS1, we've updated document 1810, the financial statements preparation work program. So as well as all of the other work programs with the presentation and disclosure procedures, to make sure that we do prompt you to look at not material accounting policies, but rather significant accounting policies. The other way around, material and not significant. So we've updated the procedures in all of the work programs, as well as document 1810 for that. The details are in the release notes. Then supplementary or other unaudited information. In document 1050, we used to have a question that asked, are there any supplementary or other information, and that was one question as well. We have now split that question into two as well, and the question will ask for supplementary information separate from other information. And based on the question answered there again, we will then prompt you to do various things in the financial statement preparation work program, as well as based on the results from there, the consideration of the assurance reports, and if management didn't disclose certain information, we will then prompt you for various audit opinions there. So we split that. Previously it was all grouped together, but now it is separated again. Then looking at work programs, we have included quite a few new procedures for you. After the split last year, we said initially we'll just split the procedures, and now this year we went and we added the procedures to various work programs to extend the tests that we do. Then we've also edited quite a few assertions for the procedures with the split of the procedures, as well as with the procedures being on different work programs. We got feedback on improvements that we can make on how assertions are allocated. So we have made some of those improvements as well. And we've updated the wording of some of the procedures, the extended test of details and the sampling procedures. We've made sure that those procedure numberings are correct, as well as with the extend step references. We also updated our visibility conditions for when the procedures are shown, based on, first of all, whether the entity is small or large in document 1020, the legal form of the entity selected in document 1020, the country that you've selected, your accounting framework. So sometimes some of the procedures for IFRS or SME were showing and vice versa. So we just made sure that those are corrected. And then any entity specific selections in 1050. So fair value or cost and those types of overall selections, impairment. We made sure that we update the procedures to show correctly in from document 1050 into document 1051, and then from there into the work programs. And then also the sections as well as relevant tabs. We got some feedback that you want to add certain tabs to some of the financial statement areas and the balance sheet items, and we've went ahead and we've added those. Then looking at some of the known matters. So when you open your work program, currently the selection in the firm settings is not working. So whether you want to show the lead schedules, this is not currently working. So although it's unticked, it does unfortunately show the lead schedules. You don't have to report that to us. We are busy working on that to make sure that we get this tick back and working. And then some of you reported that the specific materiality is not showing on lead sheets. We're still busy working on that one to make sure that we do show specific materiality. For now, you can check it in document 1060. And then 1150, we're currently working on the comments. When you right click and insert comments, there is a description column that you can use, but we're also looking at how we can improve comments. Now, before I move over to the timeline, just maybe quickly standing still on the work programs as well. Just want to check something quickly. I missed the procedures required by the ISAs and the other laws and regulations. So for the work programs and based on the feedback on ISA 315, in the past, you always had to do all of the assertions in all of the work programs and all of the procedures shown. Now with the change in ISA 315, where we're really following a risk-based approach and only procedures based on certain assertions will show, what we've done for the ISA required procedures is we have removed the assertions from those procedures. So previously, you might have thought that you're getting assurance because you've performed procedures based on an ISA-specific requirement, but those procedures don't actually have assertions allocated to them, and you're not gathering audit evidence for that standard. Now, you might say, what is those procedures, especially in sampling? We do have some of those procedures where we say when designing and testing the samples below, and that's ISA 530, and then you have to consider a few things. We have removed the assertions from those procedures. So those procedures will now always show, doesn't matter which assertion you have selected. And when you look in O250, O200, the assertion count, then it won't count to the assertions. And if you do a filter, it will also not count towards that. So that just makes it a bit easier to keep track of the assertions that you actually have tested. And some other examples is your using work of a management expert or using work of an audit expert, external confirmations, ISA 505. So we've changed all of the ISA related procedures to not have assertions linked to them. And we've also brought in the ISA reference for you. So if you're wondering why a procedure doesn't have assertions, you'll see that in the ISA reference. Then if we look at the testing of compliance with laws and regulations, ISA 250 requires that you should obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding compliance with laws and regulations generally recognized to have a direct effect on the financial statements. So what we found is that there is a risk that you do miss these procedures because they no longer always show. And what we've done is in document 1121, we have now brought in when there are direct effect items, that in document 1220, your audit plan and strategy, we will then prompt you which sections does have a direct effect, and then we will prompt you from there to go and add the procedures. So if I quickly show you what that looks like, is in document 1220, laws and regulations may have a direct effect, and then you select yes, and if you do, we do give you a prompt to review and amend the work program to obtain sufficient and appropriate evidence. Remember, in 1121, we give you a list of some of the laws and regulations that you can choose from. That list is not complete and comprehensive. You would have to add whatever is relevant to your client that you're auditing. And we also can't provide procedures for every single law and regulation out there. So this is our prompt to remind you to actually go and update your work program with the procedures so that you don't forget that. And it could be different for the different sections. So we hope that that then helps you to be able to work with the laws and regulations. Then looking at the Companies Act, well, first of all, the VAT Act, what we've done is where it does relate to a specific clause of transaction, we again removed the link to the assertion, and we've added the ISA 240.14 reference to the procedures. So that will then just help you to keep track of those procedures, and then sure that you then test the procedures because it is actually laws and regulations related and not assertion related. And then for the testing of the Companies Act, this one is unique because some of the Companies Act procedures could have an effect on the actual clause of transaction, and some of the Companies Act procedures can have an effect on just in general the audit as a whole or the financial statements preparation. So what we've done is we've split the Companies Act procedures. Previously it all used to be in equity, but we've now split the procedures. So the procedures that are always applicable, that always should be performed, are now documented in document 1810, our general work program. Those work programs are not filtered by assertions. They don't have assertions allocated to them. You always need to do them. And that is your financial statement preparation work program. So all of the Companies Act procedures like inspect the minutes and review your share capital, those have been moved to document 1810. Then when the procedures don't relate to a specific financial statement or relates to the financial statements preparation, we've actually gone and we've added a new work program. Now, the new work program should not be confused with what we had before. And before we had document 2010, which was property, plant and equipment. Now you will see, and apologies for maybe confusing the process, but that was the next one in line, is we do have 2010, and that's now laws and regulations work program. So these are our general work programs, and this is our laws and regulations work program. So any laws and regulations work that doesn't relate to the financial statements as specifically, and the preparation of the financial statements, and it doesn't relate to a specific clause of transaction, will now be in the laws and regulations work program. So you can then go and add any specific procedures that you have or that you want to execute on a general level into the laws and regulations work program. Make sure that you do select companies if you want to see the Companies Act procedures in here as well. And then the last piece of the Companies Act procedures is where it actually still relates to a specific clause of transaction. We did include it in that specific clause of transaction. We added the ISA 240.14 affix, and we also didn't include any assertions for those work programs or for those procedures. So that was some of the feedback we got based on the optimization of work programs and procedures, given that now we optimize based on assertions, but these procedures should always be performed. It doesn't actually address the assertion. Previously it had all the assertions allocated, now it's got no assertions allocated, and hopefully it's a bit more clear on when you need to execute on these procedures. Okay, so that brings me to the timeline and then almost to the end of the probe section. So in terms of the timeline and next steps, today we're doing the beta webinar. Then on Monday, you guys can start with the beta testing. We're having some beta sessions as well, and then the testing will end on the 11th of October. So please submit any of your feedback to us by the 11th of October. Feedback we receive afterwards might not be included, and we might not have time to include that for the release on the 15th of November. And then we have a What's New scheduled for the 17th, where we will take you through all of the changes that was made. In terms of the beta feedback, remember in the beta folder on the support cloud that you will get access to this afternoon, that is where we will add a form for you to complete. And if you do have any feedback, you can then raise it in that form. Okay, so I'm having a look at the questions. I don't see any questions currently. Please feel free if you do have a question to raise it. I'm then going to hand over to Ninka to take us through the financial statements piece, and I'll keep an eye out for any questions as they come in.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the session. As Christian's mentioned, we're going to do the financial statements next, and then we will move over to Audit International after that. So for you that don't know me, my name is Ninka, and I'm the Product Manager for Financial Reporting. And with me today is Mo. He's our Product Manager for our technical items, and he will also join me for the financial statements, specifically for our firm template guide and some other technical improvements. So what we're going to cover, like I said, is IFRS and SME. Please note that SME Afrikaans is not part of the beta, so this will be SME English. And then Mo will take us through the firm template, the data retention, and also the working papers. As Christian has mentioned, we will give you access to our support cloud a little bit later today with all the documents that you'll need with the release notes, with the install sets, and then there will also be a link to the form that you can submit any of the information. Right, for this, I just want to go a little bit through the process when you will open the file, what you will see. So firstly, just to mention again, this is the first box that you'll get if you update an old file, which will be your conversion from 2022 to 2023. I do want to highlight, because we do get quite a few questions on this, this is not the update of your template, so nothing in your financials will change. This is only the conversion from working papers 2022 to 2023. If you have opened a file on 2023, you can't go back with that file to 2022. You'll get that message to say it's a higher version. So please, if you want to test an update, make sure that you don't work on live data, copy a file, and then note that it can't be opened by a lower version of working papers. The next message that you'll get is the notification manager. This is something that has been available in the product for some time, but we are enabling this again, especially in regards to any product changes. So if we have any hot fixes or any product specific relating releases, this will come up. So you should see this if you do an update. Please test this as well. Make sure the do not show button works again. And then if you go to your toolbar at the bottom, you'll see it is in your toolbar available. You can click on it and you can click on the details to see if it does work. This is PC related. So if I do not show again, it will not show on your PC again. And then you'll have to go to your toolbar and click on the bell to get the notification again. If you like any other feedback that you have in regards to the other products, please also note this on the sheet if it's working for you or not. Then the next screen that you'll see is the update process. And I do want to highlight again here that we have decoupled the probe and the financials. So if you remember last year, because 315 and the huge impact on the document manager, you had to do the update for the financials and probe all together. This year you don't have to. We always encourage you that if you do use both is to update them all together. But if you have a file that you only use for the financials, then you can definitely use only the financial update. And again, the option that we recommend is the second option, that is update financial statements, because that will really give you the most data retention. If you have ticked on the do not show again, you can find it in your toolbar when you check on the check for updates toolbar. Right, and with that, let's go into the SME changes that we have done this year. So the first part of the changes is the SAICA, is the body corporate illustratives that were issued in March 2023. That was previously an ED. So the KSA template that you had that was available was based on this ED. So we have also made these changes now that has been done on the illustratives. I do want to highlight that there's here and there things, but it's maybe not exactly the same. If you look at the illustrative, you'll see it looks like a KSA set, but it's not a KSA set. So some of the formatting, especially in the schedules, look a little bit different with borders and that, but the content is definitely all inclusive. So let's have a look at those changes in the software. Right, so if we go through all the changes, and I would encourage you to please, if you do body corporates, have a look at this and make sure that your understanding from the illustrators is also in here. We've also used this opportunity to make some improvements from market feedback, and I'll highlight those for you as we go along. So the first page, changes on the general information page, is really quite small. We've changed some wording on the country of establishment and domicile. That was previously the country of incorporation. This registered office address was changed to service address. Then we've amended the Act to actually include Act of 2011. And we have added a unit field where you can type in the number of units that you have. Then we have a few additional schedules that we've added: the levy schedule, the budget forecast, and the insurance schedule, and those will be available on your index. And then again, the reference to the Act, we have updated as well as part of the illustratives. Then I scroll down to the trustee report. You'll see that we've included the insurance policy details. So this is one of the areas where we've added a little bit more than was in the illustratives. You'll see that for the 3 different tables, they had the 3 top lines, but they didn't have the bottom ones. And also then compared to the note, there was some, they were not exactly the same. So for consistency, we've made these 3 tables the same with the same lines, and you can use them as applicable in your situation. We've also added the CSOS compliance recon, again, the same that you will find in your note. Then if we go to the accounting policies, we have 1 new accounting policies, which is the reserve fund accounting policy, which you can tailor if you need to add more to that specifically. Then the next note that we've added is a special levy note. This is not part of the illustrators, but we did receive feedback from the market that they want a recon on what the special levy is really useful, especially because it is a special levy and people do want, for the users, it's quite important to know how these funds have been applied. So we've included a little recon for you to be able to disclose this information. Then if I go to insurance policy detail, so you can see this is exactly the same that we had in the front, to make sure that there's consistency between the notes. Oh, sorry, if I just go to the revenue net next. You'll see here that we've added a few lines because the property industry revenue was all added into one line. Sorry, all of them were added into rental income, so we split them out, and we've made the same change on the detailed income statement so that all of these areas do agree with each other. If we then go to the schedule specifically, the first one that we've added is the levy schedule. So here what you'll see is we've included both years, 2023 and 2022. Again, in the illustrative, they only have 1 year, and we've made this collapsible if you don't want to show it, but for comparability, you might want to disclose both. So how this works is you can type in your figures here at the top, your audit levy, your maintenance levy, and the CSOS levy per square meter, and then it will calculate it here at the bottom. So if I change this 10 to be 100, you'll see my CSOS levy calculates automatically. So you capture the unit number, the square meter, and the rate per square meter, and the next 3 columns will calculate automatically. Then next you have the budget forecast. So we've based this layout on the detailed income statement, and it looks the same as that. What you can do here is you can either import your budget TB in the same way that you will import a normal TB, and you will just identify that column as being the budget. But we have also made these cells input for the reason that you might not have a full TB as for budget purposes. So you can either input it, like you see, I've imported the current year, but I can also input it if that is easier for me to do, and if that's what you have available. Then you have your insurance schedule, which again, you can capture your unit number and your unit owner. As soon as you input your sum insured, then your participation quota will change. So if I change that to 500,000, then that will up that to 0.455. I am just going to give it a second because we just switched over between for load shedding. So I'm just going to give it 5 seconds for everybody to restart. Okay, then further on the insurance schedule, like I said, this participation quota changes so that it always adds up to 1. On roll forward, we have amended, or the way that this schedule works is a little bit differently than the others, because the understanding is that this will not really change year on year. So your data will retain for both years as it is, and you can go and update it. We believe that's the most efficient way of using the schedule, and will save you some time when you do a roll forward on this file. So that is for body corporates. Like I said, this will be available SME and English and Afrikaans, but for the beta process, that is part of your English template. Then next for the cash flow statement, we have made a few changes. The first one is the indirect cash flow that we've made available. Then we've made some improvements on the cash flow statement, and the cash flow statement notes. Let me go through that with you. So if we start on the indirect method, so this was something, if you go to your settings and format, that you had available on your IFRS template, but was never included in the SME template. So you can click on this button here and it will update your cash flow to be the indirect cash flow. This is not something, like I mentioned, that is new in the market. We haven't really received requests for it before, but with the changes on the cash flow worksheet last year, there was a few people that reached out to us and said they did actually tailor their cash flow to work with it, and now it doesn't work with the cash flow worksheet anymore. So that's why we have included this now as an option on the template. Then next you'll see here that we've included an undefined difference. This is just to help with the figures typed in to make sure that it ties back to the note. You'll notice that we've made quite a few changes on the undefined differences in different areas to help with that efficiency as well. So the first one is in this section here, and then the other ones is in the dividend paid and in the tax paid note. We've also added some additional lines here through intercompany loans and this dividends in specie. Please note that the dividend paid here have the undefined difference already included. It's not included for beta purposes for the tax paid, but it will be in the final release. And then one of the items that we picked up that was corrected in the patch that we sent out last year was this total cash movement for the year for prior year. As soon as you roll forward your file, then that cell became overridden and then the calculation didn't work out. So that was something that we have corrected as well. If I then jump to the next slide, for the cash flow worksheet for both IFRS and SME, we've made quite a substantial amount of changes. This is not necessarily in any way or form how it works, but we really look at specific transactions and feedback that we got on how to make it better and how to improve on it. I'm not going to go through all the details because it is quite specific, and you'll also see that most of these transactions are less common, like your disposal of subsidiaries and your business combination. So it's not really relevant to everybody that is on the call. I'm going to go through them quickly, although the first one is the rounding. So that one is quite important. What happened in your financials is if you select your automated rounding to trade receivables or trade payables, because your cash flow worksheet was reading from mapping, then it wouldn't take that rounding into account. So that is a change that we made to make sure that it reads from your note. So if there is rounding selected to your trade payables or trade receivables, so the same figures do pull through to your cash flow worksheet. Then the other transactions that we looked at was your sole traders drawings, your business combination, your disposals of subsidiaries. For share-based payment, we've added some mapping to split between your equity and cash. Then we have the non-controlling interest profit allocation, the dividends paid to non-controlling interest, the dividends paid, the transfers between reserves, and then we've also added some additional input cells, specifically in the goodwill, non-controlling interest, dividends paid, and tax paid rows. So all of these information is in your release notes. Please have a look at it. If you had a specific transaction, especially for dividends paid and tax paid, we got quite a few feedback on those two. Please have a look if it's working for your transactions now and give us that feedback if you further need to look at them. Then some other changes that we've made was firstly signature areas. So we've received feedback that there are some clients that would like signature areas that the director or person from management can sign off on some of the documents. So we've included this in the PI score, the cash flow worksheet, and in the tax comp. We have also updated the PI score calc wording. Again, the rounding of the trade receivables and trade payable that I refer to now. We've made some changes to the index. We've included the accounting policy assets, wording changes for share capital, improvements on loans to shareholders, and members' remuneration. But let me show you in the product how we have made these changes. Right, so firstly, if we look at the public score information, so we've received the public school calculation, we've received a feedback on the liability line that certain elements must be excluded because of the third party element to it. The problem that we ran into there is when we reached out to some of the regulators and some guidance on that, there's a difference of opinion on what should be excluded. So some of the regulators feel it's only like your loans to shareholders and the quite obvious ones, but then it even went further to what about deferred tax and all those elements. So because there's not really clear guidance on what amount should include and exclude, we've rather updated the wording. So to highlight the fact that this is your total liabilities that actually pull through to this document. And if you want to change it, you can manually change it. So I hope that will clarify. We had some questions from clients on that and will be better received in the market. Then we've added, like I said, the signature areas at the bottom. This is the same for the 3 documents that I've mentioned. We call this the simple signature area because it has one person that can sign for it. You can't add more people to sign off on this document, but we have added a drop down that you can change the title, and you can also have the date there. If you don't want to use it, you can just close the narration area and it will not show anymore. Right, then if I go to the index, I can just show you that changes. So the change on the index was in your notes area, your notes to financial statements, the page number reference there sometimes just included your page starting date and didn't include your page ending date. So it was just saying page 10 and not 10 to 50. So we have updated that. If we go to our accounting policies, we have made a change on all our asset notes where you now have the option to switch off and on the table of the columns. This is especially a request for when you only have one asset category and you might want to change your wording there to say the straight line or that's something like that. So to make it a bit more flexible, we've given you the option to switch those on or off. Then if I go to the share capital note, you'll notice that we've updated this text section here. This was a bit outdated from the Companies Act, and we've also received feedback from the market that we would like to amend that. We've added 2 radio buttons for your 2 different options that you have if the directors or the shareholders have control of over it. So you can please also look at that. And then the loans to shareholders. This impairment section here at the bottom was always part of your sorting, where now if you row and you sort your rows, just switch that over, you'll see that the impairment is not part of a section anymore. So if you sort ascending or descending or manually sort, it will exclude the impairment section at the bottom. And then the last thing was the directors' emoluments notes. So we have received a request from the market that they use this note for CCs as well, but because it's a Companies Act requirements, this was normally switched off by default and wasn't part of your template when you select CCs as an entity type. We have changed that this note will show, and the wording will update to be members' remuneration if you do want to use it for your CCs. Then if I jump back to my slides, there's quite a few items that we've made changes on. These are, and I want to highlight all these items should be on new file and on updated file. So if you're an updated file, these items and the others will come in, and then your data retention will retain on that note. So for example, if we've changed a line or a note reference, that should be amended, but the rest of your note should retain. So if you do test update, please double check that as well, that if you had any data in that it retains after it. So if I go through the other changes that we've made on the document structure, we had that didn't work 100% correctly and it didn't switch on when you select, so that has been fixed. In the director's report, we had a review section. If you put in a page break, then the page break didn't come up. It said it was page break, but it wasn't working, so we've corrected that. In the release last year, we've added the going concern with 2 buttons. And what happened is if you didn't matter which button you select, it printed all 3 paragraphs. So that was fixed in this release. For cost of sales, we have, specifically the cost of manufactured goods, if you had lines that printed if it was more than one amount, so that we've corrected. For related party note, you have the link that you can link to an Excel document. When we changed the documents in the document manager last year, we didn't update that specific document number. So that didn't work correctly anymore for this year. So now the Excel document has been updated. The dividend paid note is just a change in the heading. And then the directors and prescribed officers remuneration. There was quite a few scenarios where the lines didn't always print as you would want. So if you had only one, then the subtotal line didn't print, or then the total prints double. So we've just specifically looked at the totals and the subtotal lines that works for the different scenarios. The detailed income statement is a very small change on wording. And then we've included the autofill when you assign mapping. So we have received some feedback that if you do assign new accounts or you move accounts between in the mapping screen, then they don't always update in the financials, and you have to do an autofill, automap, and then it normally fixes the problem. So what we've done now is if you have mapped an account and you click on the OK button, it will automatically run the autofill. So you might see like for 5 seconds the autofill screen come up, and that is what it's doing to assist with that. Right, with that, I'm going to look at the tax changes. These are the same for IFRS and SME, so I'm going to show it in the SME file, but it will be the same in both templates. So the first change here is the default tax rate. So that changed from 28% to 27% for year ends 31st March 2023. And we've also added the 2 decimals. Then we have looked at the assessed loss limitation. This also came in for year ends 31st March 2023. The limit is to utilize a higher of $1 million or 80% of the taxable income. And then we had some other CTM enhancements. And then for the tax expenses note, we've decided to add the undefined difference. Again, some feedback we received from the market. And we were working on this note for the Pillar 2 tax, which we then gave us the opportunity to also make this improvement. So if I go and look at that. So firstly, if I look in the information store, you'll see here that you've got your 27% and the 28%. So this will automatically update in South Africa if your year end, depending on your year end. So you'll see for my year end is 31st December 2023. So my current year will be 27% and then my prior year will be 28%. You'll notice here that your assessed loss is typed in here. So like I say, we've looked at the assessed loss limitation rule that came into effect. Our understanding last year from the market was that they will just use that figure and put in the utilized amount available, but we've received feedback afterwards that say they would really like to see a calculation on how that gets applied. So we have included that calculation in the tax comp, and I'll show you that now. While I am on the information store, not part of tax, but I do want to highlight the schedule lockdown button that is also included here. So this does not, if you click on it it doesn't schedule your lockdown automatically. It is just a reminder to do it. And if you click on it, the lockdown wizard will appear. So additional improvement that we've made there for the lockdown section. So if we then go back to tax and we look at the tax computation, if we first look at the assessed loss, so I'm going to scroll back to the bottom here. You'll see here that we've added this calculation here, summary of assessed loss. So how this works is the profit pulls through here. Then you have this assessed loss brought forward from the prior, which will be the figure that is in your information store. And then it calculates this figure for you based on 80% or then the million. And then this figure that gets calculated here gets pulled to the top as your assessed loss utilized. You still then have a recon here to show your assessed loss carry forward. So this will be the figure that's then available for you for next year. We have added a line for adjustment to assessed loss, just if there's any reason for you to make an adjustment that you do have a field to do it there. You can collapse the section if you don't want to use it or don't want to print it. And we believe that this will help in the calculation. Then other further enhancements that we've made, if I scroll to the top. So firstly, this accounting loss and disposal of fixed and other assets, there was a duplicate row for that. So we've deleted the duplicate row, that there's only the one row available. And then this donations, the correct mapping was included there, that you don't have to, that the mapping works correctly with the calculation. Then if I scroll down a little bit more, Then you'll see this inputted net income from CFC. This row was always printing, so we've made this behave in the same way in the other rows, that only when this figure is inputted that row will print. And then for the small business corporations, what we've done is we've added an input row here at the bottom of the table. What happened is that these rates adjust each budget period, and then we don't normally release that time, which becomes quite a frustration for our clients. So we've decided for this year, we're going to add an input row. So then if you have a file available, or a file where you need it on, then it's easy for you just to capture and then use that going forward, instead of waiting for us to do a specific release with the new rates. And then if I go down a bit more, you'll see the narration area here at the bottom again, the same as in the PI score calc. We've also made quite a few improvements on the lines and the printing, especially because you now have the possibility that somebody might sign it off. So you want to make sure your lines and totals and all those work. So we have worked through different scenarios to make sure that your subtotal lines and lines print as they should. Again, something that you can look out for and make sure that it works on your file specifically. Then the last changes that we've made specifically for tax is on the note. So if I jump to our taxation note, the first change that we've made is this Pillar 2 tax. We've included some mapping for it so that it comes up at the top there, and also provided this sample disclosure at the bottom. This has not been affected in South Africa yet, and we also believe it's not been affected in any of our African regions, but it is quite important because it has come up that this will also be part of the budget speech next year. So again, we've included it and we've provided some guidance that it might not be applicable in your region yet, but we want to make sure that if it does become effective, that you have this available for you, and you can then just open the note and you have your disclosure available. Then while we were working on the Pillar 2 income tax, we've also included the undefined difference here. Again, something that we've received feedback from some various clients that they would like to see this. So works like all the undefined differences is the difference between this section and the note here at the top. And the same is that, like I said, down on the IFRS set, the IFRS one have it available for both the percentage recon and the amount recon. For SME, we only disclose the amount one. So you have that available going forward. Right, and with that, I'm going to move over to IFRS for the changes that we've made there. So the biggest change that we have for IFRS this year is the IS1 accounting policies. And if you were on our What's Coming webinar, hopefully you have seen the slide and you know about these changes. I do think it's important to highlight this again, just because we want to make sure that it works for the broader market. So the big change, like Christine has mentioned, is from the significant has been amended to material. And that was the small change on IS1, which caused the big change in a template. I do encourage you to, when you look at this, look at practice statement 2 as well, because there's quite a bit of guidance in there, and really understand the impact that it might have on your files and on your clients, and how you are going to incorporate that. So I'm going to show you how it works in the file and how we've adopted it. So firstly, we have put 2 radio buttons here at the top. You'll see the revised accounting policies and the previous accounting policies. This will include your accounting policies as a whole. So you can't have a consolidation policy that is the previous accounting policy and then a consolidation and then the next joint arrangement, which is the revised. It's a complete replacement of all the accounting policies. So we have done quite a lot of work on the revised accounting policies, taking the guidance from practice statement 2 and also what the market has been doing, taking out most of the difference, and really seeing that on who the users of the financials are. This might be different per entity, and this is what we had in our discussions, because the term reasonable knowledge might be interpreted different for different users of the financials. So we might feel that the definition is not necessarily where your users might not be as equipped in financial information, and then they might have to have more detail. So for that reason, we've left both accounting policies in. You can use the previous one, which is the same, or then, like I say, the new ones. If you have tailored your accounting policies already, then if you use the previous accounting policies button, your previous accounting policies will be included. Again, the accounting policies is one of those areas where we provide the template information and we give some guidance on the accounting policies, but I do want to highlight again how important it is not to use the boilerplate accounting policies, but to make it entity specific, especially for your material items. So everywhere in the financials where we did before refer to significant accounting policies, we are now referring to material accounting policies, irrespective of the button that you select here, because that is the requirement of IAS 1. You might feel the content is different between the two, but the term material accounting policies is used without. You also will see that we've made that change in the assurance report for that, if you look at that. The only time that we won't refer to material accounting policies is when it's entity specific. If you use your IFRS, template, but it's an entity specific accounting policy, then we have not amended that term. But throughout further, it will all be material. Okay, next, again, like the cash flow, so everything that I've already discussed in SME, I've marked in grey, so it is an IFRS, but the discussion we've done in SME. So again, we've looked at the cash flow statements, we've made the same improvements there, and we've also made the same changes on the cash flow statement notes of having the dividend paid, tax paid, and the undefined difference there. Then again, quite a few of the transactions we had a look at to make sure that they work correctly. Again, the grey ones is the same that we've discussed in SME. The ones additional in IFRS is the provisions, non-current assets held for sale, and the changes in degree of control. Please note that although the topics is the same, the disclosure between IFRS and SME might not be the same, so the change might be different between the two, but those were the different specific transactions that we had to look at to make sure that they work in the cash flow worksheet. Then again, the same changes that we've made in SME for the signature areas, the PR score, calc wording, the rounding, the accounting policies, and the share capital consistently between the two templates. The only additional change that we've made in IFRS that we haven't had in SME was in the deferred income. This was not a change, but we normally had the current non-current split, but we didn't have the mapping that pulled through to this section. So for consistency, we have added that to the IFRS template. Then again, a few other changes. These are exactly the same than was also available on the SME template. And then we've got these additional items. So the index line for the pages from 10 to 50. For the statement of financial position, summary, the provision note reference was not showing, although your note was on, so we have amended that. The loans due from group companies, there was quite a few alignment discrepancies there. We've updated that. For inventories, there was a subsection that expanded and collapsed differently to the rest of the financials, so we've updated that area. On leases, we had some text that instead of that disclosed the wrong year. So if you look at the text section, say 2019 instead of the year that you're in. So we've updated that. Contract liabilities, some narration changes. Then for the fair value information for the derivatives, investment at fair value, contract assets, and finance lease receivables, we're pulling through not the right note name with those sections. Then again, on the non-operating gains losses, to make sure that the lines print correctly, and then some additional spaces that we've removed in the financial instrument and risk management note. Again, all of these shouldn't affect any update that you do on your file. You should see that change coming in, but the rest of your data retains. So quite important for us to test that as part of the beta process. Great, so that was from my side, all the changes that we've made, most of the changes that we've made. Please do refer to the release notes. If you do look at this, there's quite a lot of detail in there. And we have got the feedback that to please put more detail in there. So please look at the release notes and understand if that makes sense for you for the change that you see. And then we will gladly take your feedback from there. I'm going to hand over to Mo, and he's going to take us through the firm template and the other technical items.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mohammed, and I'll be taking us through some of the changes that we've made on the template, specifically regarding the firm template. I think that's a good place for us to start. We've also looked at how we can improve the user journey for people that run updates within the financial statements, and there I think we've created data retention views, which is going to be extremely helpful to identify what's been changed in your file. So we're going to go and have a look through that. We made some changes to the optimizer screen to make it easier for you to decide on what to purge. Obviously, the more content that you have purge from your financials, or the less content that you have in your financials, the faster your financials become. And we really want you to leverage the optimizer to make the most of the speed benefit that it can achieve. So I want to show you that, and we'll take you through some of the enhancements in case we're working papers. So with regard to the firm template, the firm template, I think we should start by making sure that everybody understands the benefits that it creates. I think as an organization, even from the small to the medium to the big guys, standardization and time saving is critical. A firm template really helps you make sure that there's consistency in the work that you do and that's presented. So we really want you all to make sure that you'll leverage the firm template functionality to get the most out of it. The problem though was that the firm template was very difficult to create. Some of the feedback that we've got is that the document is difficult to follow. There's too many manual steps within the document. There wasn't enough guidance in the document, and we really solicited all the problems, I think, over the past few months, and tried to come up with a solution that would really tick all the boxes. So what we've done, and I think I'm gonna start. So originally with the firm template, you'd go to the success community, you'd look for firm template, and you'll be directed straight to the how-to document. But it was really missing a few steps before that. So what we did with the new firm templates, or with the new firm template wizard, and I'm going to share it on screen so that you can get your first look, is we actually took a workflow type of approach when we broke it down into 6 different areas where you'd prepare your starting point. This is what you'd start off with, but before that you'd actually start with planning. The planning part though, we felt that it needs to be out of the document and on the community, just so that we can be more responsive to you. If anything changes on our side, we always want to make sure that you all have the most recent information. So the workflow concept is you do your planning, you prepare your starting point, which will be the base firm template. You'd understand what's changed. You'd set your firm defaults and or customized. You'd test the firm template and make probe changes and ultimately package. So those at a high level is all the workflow that we've broken it down into. If I take you to how we envisage the community to work, I think for beta, we still haven't transferred all the content onto the community, but we envisage that you'd go to our success community, search for firm template, and instead of giving you the how-to document, which dives straight into the steps, we think that we started the process now by giving you the same overview so that you can get an idea of what to expect when you go through the process. But the first step in the process, after you get your overview, is to go through planning. So I think we sought to address some of the problems that arose when we went and visited firms and saw what they were doing with the firm templates. So some firms didn't know about firm templates. So I think it was important to start off to help you decide whether you'll need a firm template. So obviously we put in the benefits of creating a firm template. And if you want to target and try achieve any of those, then obviously the firm template is for you. Further to that, we saw that certain firms didn't know how many firm templates are created. So we recommended our best practice on having one firm template per reporting standard, and we showed you the different reporting standards that they have, the entities that they contain, just so that you can get an understanding and for anybody who's not too clear, it becomes easier for them on how to decide on how many firm templates to create. I think the other important consideration that really came up, and people often overlooked it, is what was going to be their starting point when they create their new firm template. You've got two options available to you. The first one was creating obviously a brand new firm template from scratch. So we've listed the pros and cons of either option. We suggest that you do as far as possible, you should do the create new firm template at least every 2 or 3 years, because sometimes it does happen that we can't put certain things into the update, and we always want to make sure that you have access to the latest features. So we feel that create new firm template is obviously the better way to go if you can. The update an existing firm template is also obviously supported, it's widely used, and we also give you the pros and cons. So at the end of the planning stage, you'd know how many templates you're going to be creating, the benefits that you're trying to target or achieve in your firm, and actually the starting point that you're going to use, whether you're going to be creating a new file from scratch or whether you're going to be updating an existing file. At this point, though, I think we also wanted to give you more insights into how we work, because we understand that once we release, not everybody would immediately be available to download and start creating the firm template and roll out, no matter how much we'd like that to happen. You could come along next year, and by then, hopefully not, we might have released or done another release or a hotfix. And we always want to make sure that when you start this process, that you have the latest components from us. So we've then further continued and to give you guidance to make it easier for you to understand, I think, in terms of how we work and what you can expect from us. So we sought to give you the information on what we release. So we release either a full template, which is like what you get in October, or a hotfix, which is a small little patch that you can just run. We go into detail on what the full template is, what the hotfix is, and where you can find it. I think often it hasn't been to find the hotfix or the latest templates. So we brought that in to make that information we'll bring it to the fore. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm back on my screen. The other thing that we thought it would be important for you to know is how we communicate. So one thing is making a bug fix, doing a hot fix, or packaging things together and creating a new release. But then how do we notify you about it? Because we always want to make sure that you're alerted and aware of where we are in the process and what we're doing. So for a full template, there'll always be an email and a notification in the notification manager. And when we do a hot fix, I think we'll send an email, but it's really dependent on the severity of the fix or the issue. But we will definitely always send out a notification. So that's why it was important for us to improve on the notification manager, make it more persistent, so that even if you aren't getting our emails, you'll definitely get notification from us. We also want you to get the emails from us, so don't get me wrong there, but I think there is a bit of admin that happens on email addresses and who gets what emails. So we want you to receive those emails. We've put in a link here on what you should do if you're not getting the right emails from us, just to make sure that if we do release a patch or a full hotfix or a full template, the right people in your organization get the emails. So we've brought that information to the fore. And I know I've talked about the notification manager. It's been in the software a while, and I think it was worthwhile at this point, because we're talking about our communication methods, just going into a bit more detail on what the notification manager does, how to interact with it, when you'll see it, when you won't see it, what happens when you click on the different buttons. Because I think it's important, and it's often overlooked, that we always think that shipping or repackaging a firm template is all about just sending it out to the clerks and giving them the latest content. But with the notification manager and the changes that it brings, especially with the do not show again, I think it's important that when you do send your firm template out, you communicate to them that, okay guys, the notification manager is going to be more persistent. If you do see a notification when we're not expecting it, please bring it to my attention as the firm champion. It'll really, I think there's some process changes which can be leveraged when we do a release of a new firm template, and probably is one of those things that can be leveraged and may improve your organizations, especially from a knowledge point of view. Okay, so I think I don't want to get too distracted with all the guidance that we've created. I think we are trying to give you the information as and when you need it. So it followed a very logical sequence, also included in those in the planning steps is where to get the software from, how to install it, those types of things. If there's anything there that while testing in beta that you feel that we need to add, please feel free to share it with us. We're more than willing to look at what we've done. Okay, so from a guidance perspective, those are the changes I think that we've made. I think the other big change is with the document type that we use. So obviously the old firm template process used a Word document, and it wasn't really geared to doing proper work or a nice workflow. So our new document, obviously, because it's in case view, can have the tabs at the top to make it a little bit more workflowish. It can have intelligence kind of built in, or it can make you not see the steps which are not applicable to you. Just to give you an example of what I mean, if I say create a new firm template, I've obviously got these steps here, and if I go to understand what's changed, I've only really got one step, which is to review the release notes. But if I had updated an existing file, obviously these steps become slightly different. And if I go next, the understand what's changed also is a bit more different. So we use the case view functionality and the skip and hide to make sure that you get only the steps that are applicable to you, depending on the part that you've chosen, whether it's create new file or update existing. So that's one of the major benefits of having it in case view. Some of the other benefits that you get, obviously this one that we spoke of is simplifying and only giving you the steps that are applicable to you, which we couldn't do with the Word document. But we could also do things like run scripts automatically. For example, here we did you click this button, it'll go compare your mapping database. So you can compare the mapping database from the file after update to your original firm template, and to make sure that your custom mapping numbers have been retained with their extended descriptions. And we could make it easier. So previously this was an enable special feature process. So you had to literally go to the financials, click options, enable special features, type in a code, and then go and look for the text file. to fix. Now we made it easier that if you just click the button, it launched on this screen, but it'll launch the location to where all the text files are saved. So that was another benefit that we achieved when we moved to case view. And the next important thing with regards to the firm template was the get all content. I think very similar to what we mentioned on using case view, anything that we could automate, we did. So bring in all content also used to be a manual enable special feature code. Now you just click a button, it gives the date and timestamp of when it happened. If you click on the help for that row, it'll take you to what we expect to happen when you click the button. So when you'll go with the date and timestamp, and when the tick will be across, those types of things. So we really tried to make sure you get the right level of guidance every step of the way. Okay, then I'm going to move on to the next benefits that we've created with the firm template. So this feature, I'm going to talk about it now, but it's actually applicable to firm champions and all users in your organization. So we call it the data retention view. And I'm quickly going to jump to a file so I can show you what the data retention view is. So when you interact with the data retention view from a firm champion perspective, then you're repackaging the firm template. When you get to understand what's changed, it's going to have a step here telling you to go to the data retention view. It's telling you that inserted sections have been detected, paragraph changes have been detected, updated sections have been detected. So I think I just want to pause here and just remind everybody, an inserted section is a section that comes in brand new for the first time. So it's something that wasn't in your file previously, and we've brought it in for the first time. So it's important for you to see those places so that you can review and see if there's any changes that you need to make from a firm perspective. Paragraph changes to text wording. And what we sought to do there was tell you that if we updated a section, did the wording change and what was your old word? Because you might have customized the paragraph. With updated sections, this refers to sections that were always in your file. However, there was a newer version that was brought in. So when we bring in a newer version, it could be to do a bug fix, it could be to update disclosure, but it's important that you review all the different updated sections to make sure that it's in line with what your firm expects. And last but not least, we've introduced a view which lets you see any section in your file that was not updated because it was protected. Often people customize a note or customize content within a note, and then they protect it. And that content lives in that file as is for years and years and years and never actually gets updated. However, you actually need to apply your mind to see if the comments that are, or if the protection needs to be removed because it needs to be updated to the latest version. So this lets you identify all those sections that are protected, but there's a newer version in the library. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly take you through what that looks like in real life. So under document, you get this new option called data retention view. This menu option will not be available to clients that, or in files that it's not applicable to. So what I mean by that is if you do create a new file or a file new from existing, so any file basically that you haven't run an update on, you won't see this menu because it's not applicable. It'll always be blank. We haven't inserted anything, we haven't updated anything. It's really only going to show when you choose the update sections approach when you're updating your file from one year to the next. So let's go with the first one. So we're going to select on view all paragraphs which have changed. So on the left here, this is the document map. It's telling us we've got a change in intangible assets. So this is the paragraph that it's jumped us to. If I right click and say show previous wording, I can see that, oh, okay, there's my new wording at the top, and this is the old wording at the bottom. So this is an example of a paragraph change. It's something that I obviously created, but you'll get more realistic real life examples. But through this list, you can work through this list to identify if there's any wording that you actually want to bring back that was in your own file that has obviously been updated now. The second important thing, I think, is viewing all content which has been updated. So essentially what we mean by this, that this is content that was always in your file, but there's a newer version which has been brought in. We do this for various reasons. It could be because there's a bug fix that needs to be made. It could be because there's disclosure requirement changes, so paragraph text needs to change. And these changes can actually be tied back to the release notes. We're working towards getting you to a point where you'd be able to see everything that's in the data retention view. You'd be able to track it back to the release notes. So for example, in this file, you've got info 001, which is this section here, which has been updated. Then the index page has been updated. I think it's important to note, for example, that it says auditors here and dash rep owner 061. When we were in testing, we realized that if we only had the word auditors, often you didn't know exactly which section got updated. Was it the outer section or was it the inner section? It was very hard to tell. So what we've done is we've put the name of the section label that says actually been updated, and we've always had the ability to see the section label in form mode. And if you ever want to know exactly, if you want to make sure that the section you jump to is the same section that has been updated, you just go right click properties and look at that section label and compare it to that one. Then you know that this is the section that they're actually talking about. You'll see further down when we get to multiple long paragraphs, it's very hard to determine which paragraph we actually updated. So this was the important aspect that we implemented to make sure that it's easy for you all to identify what section got updated. I think also very important to note, if you right click and go properties, that's when you're going to be able to see the section label in form mode. And make sure that it ties up. I think this is a hidden option, which we're going to obviously drive you all to a lot more now, because we're using this option in the super insert as well. So when I get to the super insert part of the demo, I'm going to show it to you all. But I think it's key that you'll start moving towards and remembering to use the right click properties option more and more. The other important thing I think I want to mention is that you have to use, there's two primary users for the data retention view. One is the firm champion and one is the end user. So when you're using it as an end user, you don't need design mode access. You're going to see a list of sections which affect you. So it's basically all the sections that have been updated and not hidden. As a user, anything hidden in your file means that you actually not using it, so you don't want to waste time reviewing it to see if it makes sense. So we're only going to show you the stuff that's not skipped as a user. But it's very important for you as a firm champion to understand all changes. So when you are interacting with the data retention view as a firm champion, you actually need to be in design mode. When you're in design mode, you'll notice that you get a longer list. The user wouldn't get the full list because obviously some of these sections is hidden. But as the firm champion, you'd be able to quickly see and say that, oh, okay, there's about 30 or 40 sections which have been updated from our old firm template to the new caseware template. And these are the changes that you only really need to look out for. Similar type of workflow for every one of the data retention view items. So even for inserted content, as an end user, you don't need to be in design mode. We'll only show you only need to see the content that's been inserted and not hidden, so that you are able to interact with. That's why you're only going to be see 3 sections here. But as the firm champion, and when you're reviewing the firm template, you need to review all the sections that were inserted. So you'll be in design mode and you'll be able to see all the different, jump to all the different sections that were inserted. So we feel this is going to be a valuable tool in helping you identify what's changed when you're creating your firm template, and also what's changed if you run an update in your file from one year to the next. The last data retention view I think I'm going to show you quickly is the ability to see all sections that are now basically out of date or haven't been updated because they were protected. So if I jump to this first section, it's taking me to ACP 001 52 55. So basically ACP 001. And if I scroll up a bit, I can see that I've actually protected ACP, the entire ACP 001. So any section within it is not allowed to change. And therefore, these sections now are out of date. There's a newer version in the library, and you need to go and determine if you need this new versions or not. If you need the new versions, it's very easy. You just do a get new version, either of the accounting policy or the individual sections, and they'd be removed from the data retention view. So I think the data retention view is a powerful tool. We really see it making a big difference for the end users and for the firm champions. So we're looking forward to getting beta feedback on it. And if there's any more data retention views that you'd like us to create, please feel free to share it with us. Okay. Quickly, I'm going to talk about the auto copy, the packager folder. There was a manual step in the old process where you had to copy the packager folder from the Caseware Firm template into your file. What we've done now is we've actually just made it a button click. So while you're in the process, you click the button, it'll automatically determine the right Caseware template, and it'll copy it to your file. And then the second and very tedious step was that we used to have to rename the manifest or rename components within the manifest. We're now creating a function where you can click a button and it'll automatically do that work for you. We envisage this as a big area of complexity, which has now been reduced, and we hope to get some feedback on that. I think other areas of the firm template that we looked at was customizations. So customizations are really covered in the set the firm defaults or customize tab. What we did, especially in this tab, is we gave you a step-by-step flow to follow. So obviously step one would be to import a trial balance, because when you're customizing, you need to see whether things turn on and off correctly or based on figures. So importing a trial balance would be step one. Then we introduce, or we're showing you the existing feed. We brought to the fore all the existing customization functionality that we have in form mode without going into design mode. Because there's so much that you can do with our financials without going into design mode that we really wanted to highlight all the different areas that that are available to you. So if you have an old firm template, whether you created a new file or you updated an existing file, you can always import your old firm settings. What I mean by that is if you had capital letters for the page titles, for example. So this general information page. And obviously, if you created a new file, our standard template is not set to capital letters. Using this option, import data, by just selecting the firm settings option and browsing to your old Caseware file or your old firm template, it'll automatically go in, bring all the formatting and settings that you had in your old file, bring it into this file and apply it. So when you jump back to your financial statements, you'll see the capitalizations, you'll see all the formatting that you had in your old file applied to the new file. So it's a very powerful feature. If you're happy with your firm, with your formatting in your last year's file and it doesn't really need to change, then I think all you need to do is just run this feature and you can skip a lot of the formatting options below. So that's one of the ways that I think we wanted you to be faster. Then obviously once you've got your firm settings sorted, you're going to complete your info store, and then we started giving you information on how to customize the headers. I think even on this is an important one to note, that previously the feedback that we got was that it's hard to tie up the HTML or the setting screen to what it's actually going to do, because we'd say here, okay, format, and there's a tick or untick for header line, but nobody really has a visualization of what the header looks like. So what we did is we showed you, like, if you tick headline, highlighted in red is what's going to show or not show. If you went and changed the style from default to white on black, this is the expected outcome that you should be getting. If you change the justification or the left indent or the right indent, that's what you should expect to see. So we took it to a level that just by launching it in the firm template guide and looking at the help, you can quickly determine what settings you'd actually like to apply. The other big feature that we did when it comes to customizing your file is the ability to copy content while in form mode. I think we experienced a lot of frustrated firm champions during the year who needed to customize content. And with the old process, it was a very tedious task. What you needed to do was create your content using super insert, for example. And once your content is created, you needed to then go into design mode and add GUIDs and make a whole lot of changes to it. So when we looked at what we could potentially do is we leveraged the section labels again. And I'm just looking for a section that I think would be a good example to copy. Okay, this one doesn't have a table. I want one with a table. Let's look at pledgeless security, for example. So this is a good indication of what customers normally said that they'd like to recreate for various reasons. And it was very difficult to do it in super insert. It was very slow. And what they asked for was the ability to copy an existing section and basically make all the changes that are required so that they can just go in and make the wording changes that they want. So that's actually what we tried to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the section label, notes 00507. You just stand there and double click on it. If that's a copy, or if that's what you want to make a copy of, if you have the firm template guide within your document, and if you click on the super insert, there'll be a new super insert option, says insert copy of existing section. When you click it and you paste in the section label, that it'll ask you for the section label that you want to copy. You paste in what we copied from the section properties dialog, and it'll automatically go and create a copy of that section in this. It'll go and make all the changes that it needs to in design mode. So it'll go and delink or it from writing to any external CV database records. It will go and add GUIDs to all the rows, cells, columns, tables, sections. It'll give the sections a new label, and it'll give it the unlinked note icon. So the unlinked note basically is the icon which indicates that something has been super inserted and it's actually not linked to the library. But just like that, you've got a replica of the section above, which you are able to change to suit your needs. So we're really looking for feedback on the insert copy of existing section. We think it's a very powerful tool. We just need to know if there's any gaps in the current implementation. So with regard, now that we've covered helping you understand what's changed, and we've helped you customize or make the customization journey easier, we wanted to make sure that it's easy for you all to test once you all have made these changes. So we've created automated tests, and I just want to run you through one or two of them. So for example, and I want to jump back to the super insert section. So in the old way of rebuilding this note, what would happen is there'd be a manual step to run a test for duplicate goods. So in the new way of doing it, when you interact with the firm, by creating a firm template through the firm template guide, what happens is obviously we've done the first thing of adding the goods automatically. So it's not something that you'd have to do manually, but we've also made it easier to test that we've done the right thing. So after we've super inserted, historically, what would happen is you'd have a problem with this test because you'd get blank goods. Now, because the super insert has been improved, the test actually passes immediately and there's no manual intervention required at all. So that's why we really think we've leveraged case view to its full potential to maximize the efficiencies that you all can create or get when creating a firm template. So we've got automated tests for finding duplicate sections, overlapping sections, carry forward headers, and we've just suggesting some manual tests. We feel that the list of automated tests will continually grow based on the feedback that we get from you all on where the problem areas that you would like us to concentrate on. So we're really looking forward to working with you guys to identify what automated tests to build next. Then I want to jump back to the presentation to move on to the next part of the slide. Okay, finally, the last and biggest problem, one of the other big problems that you had was that you'd end up starting your firm template creation journey, you'd install the latest components, and then you'd get sidetracked, or somebody would interrupt you and they'd want you to look at a bug that they're having, experiencing, and you'd go and overwrite, you'd go and install the old firm template to try and replicate. And we've seen this happen often. So how we've mitigated this risk in the firm template guide is that we've introduced a check which you can just click on before you repackage to tell you if the script versions tie up to the template versions that you have. This, we feel, is going to stop a lot of the script errors that went out or got distributed to firms or to users because templates were packaged with older scripts. A couple of the other quick efficiencies that we were able to automate. So we've just given you a button to quickly delete the trial balance because previously it was you had to do a copy components from the template. And another efficiency gain was that one of the steps was that you had to turn off each and every note and ACP individually before you save to library. Now we've given you a button which you can simply click, which will automatically close all the notes and ACPs before you save to library. So I think we're very excited about the firm template guide. We're really looking forward to getting feedback from you guys. We think it's really going to help. I'm going to jump into the optimizer. I'm just a bit cognizant of time, and I really want you all to get the benefit of seeing everything that we've done. So just to recap, the financials optimizer was a feature that we developed to speed up the financial statements. So we've got feedback from you guys that the financial statements is very slow. We've done this a few releases ago, so it's been with you a while. However, we noticed that it wasn't being used as to the full extent to get the maximum benefit. So just to recap, we see that when most files in the market don't contain 100% of the content, they contain somewhere between 30 to 70% of the content. And what we realized, if we purge some of that content, or the content that's not being used, it results in a speed improvement for your financials. So on screen, you should be seeing some of the benchmarks that we've got to date. And we really want to obviously make things as fast as possible. Just and why we're emphasizing on it, I think we obviously want you all to be as fast as possible. The easiest and first thing to do was that you all understand how to use the existing functionality. I think with next year's release, we're going to be looking at different things, like whether we reduce the number of mappings, or we reduce the size of certain other databases, or if we actually delete content through the optimizer at a lower level. We're doing POCs to determine what the next round of speed improvements is going to be. But for this release, we said that we've got this functionality that's not being used as much as we'd like. The problem that we saw in the market was that people were launching the optimizer, and you'd see the screen, and it will tell you that other comprehensive income is on the right, and it wouldn't automatically take it to the left, which means it would be purged. And you as an end user, it doesn't really matter to you to take it out. I think nobody was really aware of the speed improvement it gave. But if I had to look at this file that I've got on screen, the other comprehensive income, the related parties, should probably have been taken out, because it's black, and on the right hand side, that means it doesn't have a balance. So what we've done now is, when you're in that situation, we automate where you've got a note in your file that does not have a balance and is off, then we're automatically going to take it to the left. Previously, we only brought stuff into your file automatically, but now we're going to suggest that you delete this content, because this content is investment property at fair value. It's in your file, it's taking up space, it's making things slower, and it's off, and it doesn't have a balance. So there's really no need for you to have it in the file. Remember, the important thing with the optimizer is, once it's purged, it doesn't mean that it's gone forever. You can always get that content back. All you have to do is just say right click on that note. It'll come in automatic. It'll come in from the library. And if you map something through the trial balance, so say if you get an account and you map it to investment property at fair value, the moment you open the financial statements or return to it, it will automatically pop up the optimizer. It'll tell you that you have to bring this note in. We're not going to let you cancel the screen because it's required for balancing. So it's very difficult to go out of balance, especially if you used with the optimizer, because it just doesn't let you. So I think the first step in helping with the speed improvement was to make sure that we'll have the most optimized file as possible. So we're going to automatically delete content when we feel that it's off, when it's not needed in the file. I think then we're going to jump on to what's new in Caseware. First and foremost, from a feature perspective, and most important to this market, I think, is the file relocked feature. So obviously, if you locked your Caseware working papers file, you'd see a file lockdown event, and then you'd access that file again, and you'll unlock that file, and then it'll give you the relock event. Sorry, I unlocked and relocked at almost the same time. So that's why you're seeing the same timestamp. But in practice, you'd see that a file would be unlocked and relocked, and the exact times that happened. So we've introduced a new PDF writer in Caseware working papers. I think we've changed the UI slightly for different areas. I think most notably, and Myron did do a webinar about this, but I think as an organization, we just want to remind you, is that Sherlock is in beta. So on screen, you'll see a graph, for example, which is showing you the engagements per financial statements template. So for this firm, they've got, obviously, the blue is IFRS, the dark blue is IFRS, the light blue is GRAP, and you can see how many GRAP files they've done in 2021 versus IFRS. So what it means is that all the data that's in caseware working papers is basically extracted when your engagement files are synced to the cloud, and you're able to dashboard the data from your caseware working papers files in Sherlock. Then there were about 15 different bug fixes across various areas of caseware and case view. At a high level, it revolved around these areas. And yeah, I think that's what I wanted to cover today from my side.
Okay, thank you so much, Mo. So let's continue and then look at Audit International. So for the guys that don't have Audit International, you are welcome to log off now, or if you want to see what we've changed, you are welcome to stay on. But that for the probe and financials, we are done with the beta session and the changes in there. So let's look at Audit International 25.1. Again, the beta process, we went through it this morning. Focus is again for all of the assurance products, ISO 220 and ISQM 2. But more important for Audit International is our financial statement areas. And I can't emphasize this enough. The financial statement areas are changing, similar to what we've done last year with Probe. And I'll show you what that looks like. But we are now aligning the financial statements between the two products, the lead sheets, the assurance sections, as well as the financial statement areas, so that we can optimize the integration. And then we'll look at the what's news, features, integration, localization, as well as content, and some of the known matters. So again, the beta process, I have posted in the chat the support cloud link to the file. You won't have access yet. We'll give access to everyone who's attended after the session. And then we'll also upload the recording a bit later to there today. And you will then access all of the templates and everything from there. So ISO 220, ISQM 2, quick recap. ISO 220, responsibilities of the engagement partner. ISQM 2, the roles for the engagement quality reviewer changes. So let's look at the financial statement areas, which is, other than the compliance changes, the biggest change to Audit International in quite some time. We have now aligned the financial statement areas, which is the grouping database, between what we have in Probe and the financials with what we have in Audit International. So previously it was a bit different between the financials and Probe, and then last year we updated the financials and Probe financial statement areas, and now this year we are updating the Audit International ones as well. So that means a brand new document manager, as well as brand new and renamed and renumbered sections. And we've given you a summary of that in Annexure D of the release notes. And it also gives you new lead sheets and the graphs that will work a bit different. So if I just quickly show you the release notes in Annexure D, this is what it will look like. So it will tell you which sections were renumbered, which ones were removed, as well as which ones are new. So as an example, investment property, we used to just have one section for investment property, which was 21.10.20, and now we have two, 3.11.10 and 3.12.10. One is investment property at cost, the other one is investment property at fair value. That allows you to do a separate risk assessment based on when it's relevant, and it also is applicable to the various accounting frameworks. Now, also important is the sections that's not relevant or the FSAs that's not relevant will optimize out once you integrate with the relevant set of financials. And then what we've done is, where applicable, the procedures for 311.10 and 311.12 or 312.10 has been copied from the previous document. Now, important, if you previously added procedures in 21.10.20 for investment property at fair value, the firm author would then have to go and move them to 312.10. So similar to what we've done, you would then have to go and move your framework specific procedures to the relevant new work program. Okay, so that's why we've given you the summary so that you can see what we've done. The ones that we've just renumbered will have no impact on your procedures. Just make sure that when you did reference in your connector working papers or your normal working papers, if you reference to the document ID, shouldn't be a problem. If you reference to the document number, then you would have to put in the new number for the information to pull through. So a few new sections, we've also removed a few sections, and then a regrouping of the whole document manager. So let's look at the actual template, and there we can now see our lead sheets and working papers. It is grouped into the new sections, and then we can see the applicable work programs as appropriate. Okay, so that's what it will look like now. You have your procedures, substantive analytical, as well as your lead sheet, and then be categorized as such. Now, this makes it a lot easier if you do copy components. Remember, we actually never advise you to copy components, trial balances, or mapping between a probe or a financials file into Audit International. Always use the financial statements components. But if someone does make a mistake, it's going to eliminate the number of errors. That's going to happen because the two are actually now aligned. There could still be scenarios where they're copying an SME, mapping into an IFRS Audit International file, or vice versa, and that could cause issues. But at least if you're copying a trial balance that's been mapped before on the probe side, the grouping is the same, then the grouping is now the same in Audit International. So if you're importing or copying without using the financial statements components, the chances of getting something wrong is a bit less. But I always want to, and I want to emphasize again, that rather use the financial statements components pattern when you need to bring in financial statements into the file. So quite a big change for all of the firm authors. Take note of the sections, understand, and then make sure that you do have an understanding there of what's changed. So let's look at some of the what's new, features, fixes, integration, localization, and content. So from an author perspective, the FSA has been updated. So, and you can now choose what and how you want the FSA to be generated. So I just want to be in the template. So I won't show everyone how to open the template, but I just want to be in the So in the FSA, when you are now choosing how to generate it, then you can actually choose which balances you want to generate it from. So previously, you could only choose from the current year balances, and it was only the planning balances. Now you can also choose to generate from the prior year budgets or the prior year. And if you have any custom balances, we've given you the instructions on how to set custom balances in your FSA as well. Now, important, we have already regenerated the FSA for all of the clients. So when you update your Audit International template, you will get the new FSA. And this is what it will look like with all of the various sections. Now, important to note, we are replacing this document. So none of your customizations that you've made previously as a firm author will be retained in the FSA. So if you added any financial statement areas, or if you changed the assertions, unfortunately this year you will have to go and redo those pieces of work, and that's because it is new sections, it is seen as brand new, and it is linked to new grouping numbers. So just make sure, and if you've added new work programs or different work programs, add them to the new sections and then change their numbers so that they can fit in as well and be optimized accordingly. So that's changes to the FSA. Then in terms of the general options, the AO settings, you can now retain your completion responses as well as add another 20 profiles, so 40 in total. So let's go to that file and have a look. So the AO general options, when you roll forward, you can now choose to also retain the completion responses for work programs and checklist, or you can clear them. You can see our default are to retain, and then there's also selections to show when you update, do you also want to retain those responses for completions and explanations on work programs and checklists. Then for the engagement profiles, our default is 1 to 20, but you can now go up to 40 profiles. So you can really create various profiles for the different engagements that you could do, and up to 40 based on the specific scenarios that you would want to create for. Then if we quickly jump to risks, the general risk options. So previously you could change your risk assessment levels, but the risk assessment levels, when they were changed, did not have an impact on the color of how the risks are being displayed in the documents. So what we've done now is when you change the scoring of the risk assessment, we will then also change the color coding of the risk assessment in Audit International. So starting from a light gray all the way up to a dark red, and there's 8 different levels that you could see. So 8 various differentiations between them. And then based on procedures, one of the areas we got a lot of feedback on is about 3 or 4 releases ago, we introduced common procedures, which is the library concept. You add the common procedure into one work program and you can choose it to be common, and then select which other work programs it should be shown as well. But what we've seen happening is it might have been a common procedure, you forgot it was a common procedure and it's being used in other work programs, and then you start editing it and you're making it a normal procedure again. And we didn't previously warn you, but when you made it a normal procedure, it would have removed the common procedures from other work programs. So now what we've done is we've brought in a warning so that if you do that, you will get a notification to say you're moving from common to normal, or you're sure, and it will then remove from the work programs and warn you about that. Okay. Some fixes that you guys reported to us is sometimes the audit optimizer confirmation report didn't show all of the areas being optimized, and it also didn't always optimize all of the documents. So we have changed that. We've made some improvements on the FSA, as well as on some of the procedures when they show and when they don't show, and some improvements on risk controls and reportable items, how they show, and the dialog boxes. You can see the details in the release notes if you want to see more details there. Then very important, integration will only be allowed with the new financial statements. So you will not be allowed to integrate with the previous 22 versions of the financial statements, and that's because of the updated grouping. So if you want to integrate with the previous set of financials, you still need to make use of AI 24. But if you want to make use of the new financials, you need to make use of AI 25. So this year it will be extremely important for the firm to decide on an implementation date for Audit International 25, as well as then the financials, because the two will go hand in hand. And that's why we're releasing them together this year. Previously, we released Audit International a bit sooner because it could integrate with the previous one, and then we updated the grouping to also be integrating with the upcoming one. But this year, because of the significance and all the changes in the financial statement areas, we can't allow for integration between old versions and new versions. So also important is you won't be able to integrate an AI 24 file with a new set of financials. We didn't accommodate for that scenario. So make sure that you have your AI versions and your financial versions assigned or aligned. Then for localization, if you were here this morning for the pro parts, we've also added the history documents into the Audit International files. So if I just scroll down, there's my engagement history. So your adjusting journal entries, who's accessed the file, when documents were created, deleted, all your history events, and any post-lockdown events that was then added. So those files are in Audit International as well. It is localization that we've added as part of South Africa. If you're part of a network firm and you're getting your template from them, you're welcome to copy these documents in, but they will not be included in your default firm template. Then the FSA, as I've shown you, has been updated, as well as then document 106, our simple statements, and 335.3, which is our worksheet of the detailed of identified misstatements, to then accommodate for the changes in the financial statements. And I've already mentioned the financial statements itself. Then looking at content specifically added for Audit International, there's 2 new forms in addition to all of the other documents or procedural changes. The first one is document 302, which is an EQ checklist, and that EQ checklist is for your engagement quality reviewers to then go and complete. So are they eligible? Do they have an understanding? Have they reviewed planning? Are they responding to risk? And then their overall evaluation together with the scientific conclusion. So that's what that document does. And then we also have a brand new document 308, and this is a withdrawal document. So when you withdraw from a specific engagement, then this document will help you to document why you have withdrawn, do you have permission, and then did you communicate it, and you can document all of that in the withdrawal document. So this document won't always be included. You can bring it in from the document manager, from the document library into the document manager, because we don't expect you to withdraw from all your clients. You only put it in when you actually withdraw. Okay. So that just helps you in terms of that. Then important, all of the OneForm profiles have been updated, and the OneForm Plus with the new ISO 220 requirements. So references as well as new sections. So if you had any OneForm changes, remember OneForm is a pure form document, and it doesn't retain any updates on changes. So for firm authors, depending on how you've authored your OneForm document, you might either lose the customization that you've done, or you will not get the new updated content on ISO 220, and you will have to add that content back in. So just take note of that with this year. Because of the significance of changes, the OneForm documents are being replaced. And if you haven't made a copy of it, then before you run the update, make sure to make a copy. And then in general, in all the documents, the terminology changes from engagement quality control review to engagement quality review has been implemented in the guidance, in the procedures, in the references. So we've updated those, and it was done as a minor update to procedures. So that when we update engagement files in progress, they don't have to get the update, but when you create new files, the change is actually in. And the same thing then goes for guidance. So when you update your firm template, just make sure that where you've added custom guidance, you have a look, because we will be updating the guidance sections with guidance from the new standards and references to the new standards, and you would want to go and update those. So I'm not going to go through all of the procedure changes. It is in the detailed release notes. As a reminder, let me quickly show you the release notes. So we do indicate for each procedure. So if we look at, as an example, the overall audit strategy, there we have changed the wording. We indicate in red what the change is. We indicate the ISO reference, and we also indicate to you if it is a major or a minor change. So you can see where we're just changing references, it's a minor change. Where we're actually making changes to the procedure content, it is a major change. So you can work through those, make sure that you bring in the new content where applicable, and when there's new procedures, we also indicate as such. So there is 52 procedures with major changes, 46 with minor, 10 new, and we've deleted 2. So not a lot deleted, but we've added quite a bit of content. So then looking at some of the other matters, there is quite a few annexures that we've added. So Annexure C will just give you some of the known matters that you need to look out for when you're updating through the patch or when you're updating your network templates. Some of them we've provided workarounds for you, and some of them are not issues. It is just how the template works, and we've included them for you so that you are reminded of how the template works. Then in terms of sections, so Annexure D, I've quickly shown that to you. Make a note of the Annexure D, maybe make sure when you publish the template that you do send out Annexure D to everyone so that they can keep track of how the sections change from the old template into the new one. Then I've also added a firm author notice in Annexure E. So if we quickly just open Annexure E and have a look, what we found when we started testing is that there are some scenarios that we just want to remind you of how certain things in the template works. So it is the very last annexure. And these are things you need to take into account when you're updating your firm template. So first of all, the FSA, I've already mentioned the FSA, any assertions, any customizations will be lost. You need to make some time to incorporate those. Then the document manager, as a reminder, a few releases ago, we brought in the ability for you to retain the document numbers and names or just retain your document manager flow. Now, if you are going to add one of those two to your firm template, then your update is not going to change the document numbers and it's going to become extremely confusing. So my advice to you is do not add those for this release. The changes are just too big and you are going to create work for yourself to then go and have to create folders and rename and renumber documents if you keep those in your engagement or in your firm template. So make sure that when you're updating your firm template, when you've done this in the past, you don't do it for this release, because what we will then do is not update any of the document managers, and we'll just add all of the content right at the top, and you will have to go and do that yourself. Okay. Again, the mapping database and lead sheets. The financials and Audit International goes hand in hand once we have created an engagement file. So what we found is that people forget to also update the financial statements. So if we think about it, if we have last year's engagement file and we update Audit International will bring in the new lead sheets, the new document manager, the new work programs, the new FSA, as well as all of the ISO 220 content. But it's not going to update your mapping database. You will still have your old mapping database. The new mapping database and the groupings will only come in once you've actually updated your financial statements. So we do prompt you as part of the update process to update the financials. I think many times people click ignore or update later. The problem then is your numbers between the financials and the Audit International working papers will not tie up, because in the financials you've got an old mapping database, you still have your old financials, and your documents are now together with the FSA looking for the new mapping and groupings. So make sure that you update the financials and people understand they need to update financials as well as Audit International. And the process is AI first, financials second. And the process will prompt you to do that. If you don't want to update the financials, you're also welcome to reintegrate if you've received a new set. Okay. Then for the lead sheets, if you as the firm author have added any new lead sheets in your firm template and you want those lead sheets to be deleted when you update because they are now no longer relevant and you want to add your own, there is a delete ls text file that we've created to allow you to delete the lead sheets. So you can reach out to myself or the support team together with consulting, and we'll be able to help you add the documents. But you'll see it's quite straightforward. If you open the document in the location before you repackage your firm template, we ask you for the lead sheet number, you put it in, and then it will delete that lead sheet as well when you update the engagement file. Okay, and then just one last note. We do know that the firm authors might want to start authoring on Audit International to facilitate some of these changes and to look at some of these changes as well. So we've kept Audit International for now on Working Papers 2022. And when you then open a working paper or an Audit International file, it will still be on the 2022 version. So it will ask you to update to 2023 if you have the new version of working papers installed. So for those of you who don't want to move over to 2023, you don't have to now. That is just for the beta period and for the interim while we allow you to have a look at the changes in a bit more detail. When we do release to final, you will have to update to 2023 to accommodate for the financials as well. And then just a quick timeline as we had before, and I've also pasted it in the questions. So webinar now, you can start testing. 11th of October, beta feedback, please. And then we will release mid-November with the webinar. Okay, so that brings us to the end. Let me have a look if there's any questions. Doesn't seem like there's any Audit International questions. So thank you very much for attending. We look forward to sharing the new versions with you. And please let us know if there's any questions, if you're struggling with anything, getting all of it. I've seen a few questions around getting access. If you don't have access to the support cloud, Nick and I will give you access a bit later. If you forgot your password, follow the link. There is a reset password or else contact support and they can reset that link or reset your password for you. And I've also posted the Google form where you can provide feedback. So please provide feedback in there by the 11th. So if there's no other questions, I'll give it a few more minutes, but then I'll close the webinar and then we can start uploading the content and the videos for you. Thank you very much for attending. Happy testing, and we look forward to getting your feedback.